Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be talking about just how important Xbox 360 static recompilations can be. Because RexGlue is pivoting over to a custom renderer for these projects, and honestly, we've been getting a lot of fun Xbox 360 recomps. But I want to talk about the performance improvements you can get in games today when they are statically recompiled, not just on the visual or frame rate side of things, but actually on the playability side of things. Because we're going to be taking a look at Dodonpachi Saidai Oju today, which I'm just going to call Dodonpachi from now on so I don't screw up the translation and have to say that word again. And honestly, this is maybe the perfect example of why static recompilation can make games better. And just so you know, I am definitely not an expert at this game. I do love bullet hell shmups, but it's been a few years, maybe 3 or 4, since I've actually sat down and tried to hone my skills with this one, but it is on my shelf, and honestly, it's not the most amazing port to play. And that is because there actually is input latency in the Xbox 360 version of the game. So if you pop the disc in, even if you're on a CRT, it really isn't unplayable in any way, shape, or form, but there is latency in the controls that can affect your performance because obviously on something like a bullet hell shmup like Dodonpachi here, you absolutely want to have better control over your playable ship because avoiding bullets is absolutely the name of the game. This game is not easy. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, you got a Patreon link down below as well. And just so you know, this is from a developer going by the name of either Indus or Andus, not sure. It's always hard to pronounce it correctly when I don't know who the person is and can't ask them. And this is absolutely working exactly as expected. The reason this thing is so impressive and I wanted to talk about it not just because I love the game, is because within the static recomp, the developers actually patched in a lot of new code to make the input latency go back down to where it should be so that it is a more enjoyable experience. And that is why I talk about just how important static recomps, decomps, and PC source ports are. Not only can it improve the performance of a game, but it can actually remove issues that the original game had that really would hinder your complete enjoyment of the game. It basically went down from 3 frames per second to 1 frame per second, and that absolutely, adding nothing else on the Windows side of things, makes the game just that much more playable in my opinion. Now again, you're going to see me take a couple of hits and a couple deaths here, but I was able to navigate my ship around using an arcade stick on my Windows machine, and this game felt fluid, it felt fast, it felt natural, it was doing everything I needed, nothing more, nothing less. And trust me, on a static recomp, if there was any sort of hitching or problems here, I would just end up dead way more often than not, minus the fact that I made that mistake naturally there, because these are not easy games to get good at and learn, and even though the fact that I haven't played this game in like 3-4 years, getting through the first stage on just one continue felt like a decent enough showing for me to feel good about the capture. And this is done by the developer in 2 different methods, both achieving an extra frame of latency reduction. First, the controller polling is changed up and then basically force-fed back into the static recompilation. Additionally, the frame buffer rendering is also dealt with, so that basically you're reducing the frame down to just 1 single frame of lag. And on something like Dodonpachi, that is definitely acceptable because of course, it's not like you're going to run out and buy an arcade board for this one unless you absolutely want to drop a mortgage payment worth of money. For something like the Xbox 360 port, one of the best ways to play it, and now as a static recompilation, it's gotten even better, which really is definitive evidence and proof, if you actually needed any, that static recomps can improve games, not just on the N64 side of things where you see widescreen, higher internal rendering resolutions, and increased frame rate. Because of course on something like Dodonpachi, we don't really want to change the frame rate, we want it to slow down exactly where it should slow down, and that is because the slowdown was basically programmed in spots into this game to allow you an easier way to navigate around the bullet paths. When you see something like this slowing down, just be aware that more often than not that was intentional on the part of Cave developers, and that is something that we see in basically every bullet hell shmup from them. But we don't want 3 frames of lag when it comes to input latency, especially with whatever your monitor's response time is. If you have 3 frames, then suddenly your monitor adds 2 or 3, you have 6 frames of lag, and that just isn't working whatsoever. Luckily, my monitor is sub-frame of lag, so right now I am playing at 1 single frame, and that's amazing. Let's do a soundtrack sample of the static recomp. I'll be right back and talk about why this is so important.
そのまま攻撃を続行してください。ハイパーシステムスタンバイ。ミッション完了。システム異常なし。
I mean, it sounds like Dodonpachi Saidai Oju to me, and I was able to get the name right, at least not tripping over the syllables a second time. And this is why I always talk about static recompilations being so important, being part of the future of retro gaming. And yes, I consider the Xbox 360 retro at this point in time. If you disagree, we can have a friendly chat about it in the comments, because I always love hearing people's opinions as to whether or not 360 and PS3 era is retro or not right now. I am firmly in the it is camp. Well, when we talk about static recomps, yes, your brain goes to all of the most popular N64 ones out there because they have the most dramatic showing of improving a game. It can take something like a game that ran at 18 to 20 frames per second at 240p and a 4:3 aspect ratio and blow it up to 16:9 or even ultra wide. You can have texture packs, you can have 120 frames per second. You can basically make the game feel like it was made on an N64 Pro, closer to a GameCube than actual N64 spec. But for something like Xbox 360 recomps, the overall change can be less noticeable, and in some instances like this, absolutely invisible if you don't understand what I mean by frame latency. But some of the recomps we have gotten have still improved the frame rate or otherwise performance over actual Xbox 360 hardware and even emulation. And even though some of the RexGlue recomps do use Xenia underpinning it, a lot of them have improvements to the code to make things better. But I can't stress enough, I'm sure it was not an easy task by the developer to go in and figure out how to reduce the latency down by 2 frames. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but think of it this way. 3 frames in a fighting game when you have a frame input window can be the difference between making or breaking your combo or special. Something like 3 frames in a bullet hell shmup when you're literally grazing bullets by what feel like pixels, that is the difference between being able to get good at the game and then maybe struggling with it. And that is what I want to see a lot more on the static recomp side of things. Sure, improved visuals are amazing. Sure, a bit of frame rate in an N64 3D platformer makes a night and day difference, but frame reduction and lag on systems that always had it, and that is definitely a different frontier and one that I love to see. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you could snap your fingers and make one Xbox 360 game show up as a static recomp and it would improve the performance and playability of the game, which one would it be? Because I would be genuinely curious, because again, the Xbox 360 generation definitely had a decent amount of horsepower, but it still wasn't locking games to 60 frames per second and still could have some performance issues. And it's one of those things that every single game can benefit from them. Sometimes it has to be interpolation, because even on the 360 side of things, some games lock their logic to the actual refresh rate and frame rate cap, so sometimes you can't go over that without actually breaking the game's logic or making it run too fast. But as far as Dodonpachi is concerned, dropping the latency back 2 frames makes a world of difference. This game just feels more fast and more fluid than even if I play it on original hardware sitting on my LG C4 OLED TV, which has sub-frame latency as far as gaming mode is concerned. One more soundtrack sample just because the music is so good, and I'll be right back. So again, if we go down the recomp checklist that I always like to use, as far as the visuals are concerned, everything looks exactly as it should here. The game is absolutely visually stunning, even if you can't take a look at the massive sprites in front of you. You really want to focus on that glowing area on your ship, because that is your weak point, and trying to appreciate the art is a one-way ticket to ending up dead in this game. Secondarily, all the audio is exactly what it needs to be, but the real star of the show here, and something that I want to see more static recomps actually solve and fix, is the fact that the latency has been reduced, because a quote-unquote one-to-one perfect static recompilation would still have the 3 frames of latency within the actual gameplay. So this is beyond just being a static recomp to bring the game over to a modern platform with a double-click executable for you to enjoy it. It improves upon Dodonpachi Saidai Oju in every single way possible, and honestly that is a 10 out of 10 win. And this is what you should expect from recomps moving forward. Not just improving the frame rate, not just improving the visuals, but also potentially going in and dealing with some of the game's bugs or otherwise undesirable effects, because I really do feel like, I don't know if the 3-frame lag is a bug or not, but it's definitely undesirable in a game like this. And trust me, I know 3 frames to 1 frame doesn't sound that fundamental, but when everything is so chaotic as Dodonpachi is, you absolutely want that. You want no latency in your overall inputs whatsoever, or else it's just going to be a metric pain in the ass to play the game. But short of that, we're done. The link's in the description below to GitHub, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
さやさん、そういったアフターサービスはございません。